the fifth line of Gate 13. Hello. Today we are looking at the fifth line, which is called the Saviour, in the 13th gate of the Fellowship of Man, the gate of the listener. So everybody projects onto the 13.5 that they will listen. And that's not necessarily true. They may not be willing to listen to others. However, this is a projected field. And the fact is that we, society as a whole, that is, consider listeners to be our saviours. And that's very important to understand, because what that reveals is just an intrinsic quality of what it is to be human. We are here to share with each other the nature of what it is to be in the world. That is why here in this fifth line, in this gate, we have such an exalted name. We give great spiritual value to such a name. It is our salvation that we have the gift of being able to share with each other. And in that way, we are able to inspire new generations with what we have been able to achieve in our experience. As an advantage, we make it a lot easier for them. So 13.5s can be really honored in this life. They can also be deeply burdened. Saviour. The Lifetime Learning says the ability to overcome all obstacles for the betterment of humanity. The Saviour can only appear in times of crisis. In other words, this cannot be a daily listening. This is not someone that you tell your stuff to every day, because that's just like looking in the mirror. You see nothing, you get nothing back. But this is the being that when there is that moment of crisis in your life, there are exactly the perfect ones to have listened to you, because that's actually what they're there for. The fact is, 13.5s, they get information from people who would otherwise never tell them anything, nothing. The 13.5s get those secrets. They get them because even for those people who are so deeply silent, they recognize the Saviour in the other. They don't really think that because it's a projection, it's just an opportunity for them to unburden themselves. It's not like a conscious, oh, my Saviour, but there is that element going on underneath, that energy that bubbles up underneath. Human beings need to unburden themselves. And look at how many religions there are that have some kind of a confessor as part of the religious structure. We are encouraged to go and unburden ourselves in order to free our souls so that we ascend, or whatever the narrative is. But it is a part. There was very often someone in the old tribal days who would just be there to listen, I guess, like camp counselor, you could say. It's that kind of thing. It's a human need. One of the things, or one of the reasons you could say that we have a partner in this life, is so that there's someone who at the end of the day we can say to, my God, I had a terrible day today. And you can commiserate together over how terrible that day was. We just need it. It's not right or wrong. It's just part of being human. In the exaltation, we find the charismatic genius who can find a role for everyone. The listener that has a gift for finding roles for others. But only in a moment of crisis, of course, only when they come and seek out the general. Now, this is not like you're going to your friend to hear what they've got to say. This is the projection that there is this person who can really help you in that situation. The detriment says the able administrator. Given the extreme positive nature of this position, mundane application is rare. The listener whose gift for finding a role for others is practical and suited to administration. They seem to be magical because they seem to have secrets. This is the mechanic of the fifth line. If you look at how society sees any fifth line, there is an assumption that they have some kind of secret that gives them power. Particularly here in the 13.5, they've got the secrets. They've got all this inside information. People tell them things. They really know. So imagine the 13.5 child or the 13.5 baby, when they first come into the world. They're, of course, not a saviour yet. And still this baby gets to hear all of its mother's woes and troubles. And of course, the mother doesn't realize the baby's taking that in or pulling it out. The baby hears things growing up that they don't necessarily want to hear. You know, they find out things they don't necessarily want to find out, and they get to experience things they don't necessarily want to experience. Out of that process comes the projection of being a listener. And of course, there's a great advantage because people are willing to tell them things. Now, that can really help a lot depending on who you are and what you do with the information. But there is the advantage of knowing a great deal because of that. And they can be of value to humanity, to the collective, in being able to share those experiences that they get to hear about. Whether or not that actually gets out anywhere is another story, because even though this gate has got its own transpersonal skills here in the fifth line, it still has to find the 33 at the other side in order to get it to express itself properly through the throat. The 13 on its own is not a throat gate. So the grounding comes from gate 7 in the fifth line, which is called the general. And the general is often considered to be the savior. You know, in a time of crisis, if you don't call Ghostbusters, who are you going to call? You're going to call the general. These two keynotes go hand in hand together, really. So the moon is still in gate 2. It's been there since 0201 this morning. This G center gate that is the seat of the driver, the home of the magnetic monopole, at least until it reunites with the design crystal again at the end of our time here on Earth. Next, the moon moves into gate 23 at 11:37. We're staying with a very individual lunar throat center theme here. Gate 23 in the throat, gate of assimilation. And it is the voice that says, I know, regardless of whether it actually knows anything or not. The moon then transits into gate 8, 21:16, and this is the throat gate that says, I know I can contribute. And we must have the or not here with all of these, of course. Gate 8 is the gate of contribution. It is sending out the message of gate 1 at the other end of the channel, the unique self-expression that is found there. And gate 8 is the mirror to gate 23, both of them in the knowing circuit, with the potential for mutation and the ability to express the possibilities of individuality. And the final moon gate for this report is gate 20 at 6:56 tomorrow morning. And this is the throat gate that says, I am now. This is the gate of the now, the gate of contemplation, and it is expressing the intuition of the knowing circuit. Without its connection to the 57 and the splenic center there's no awareness in this gate 20, and neither is it a motor. It cannot take action. It is just here to be in the now. Okay, thank you very much for joining me for this fifth line. Top of the hexagram tomorrow. We're into line 6 of gate 13 tomorrow, but until then we are here with the Saviour, the energy of the Saviour. So yeah, go find someone to talk to or listen to someone. Go stand in a supermarket queue and see what you listen to. Interesting the way when you really start to pay attention to these, and sometimes it's a retrospective thing, you know, at the end of the day you're going, oh yes, that actually did happen. And it's interesting keeping it light, of course, because it's very tempting sometimes to look at the energies and fit what's happened in the day into the container of the transit instead of just allowing it all to flow and be kind of cool and groovy and do what it does. But anyway, it's all fun, isn't it? So until I see you tomorrow for the top of the hexagram, as always, celebrate how gorgeous you are and go gently.